A Minecraft server, much like any server or piece of software, has the possibility of being backdoored. A backdoor is a piece of code deliberately put into software that allows someone to have access to the system on which it is loaded. So why am I bringing this up in a Minecraft video? Well, recently there's been some drama on the oldest anarchy server in Minecraft. Big surprise, right? A server with a nearly decade-long history that has more actual lore than a Tolkien novel? A server like that? Having drama? No. But in just the past 2 weeks, numerous bases and builds have been publicly leaked and griefed by a group of players notorious for this sort of thing. A group with a history of utilizing server backdoors in order to grief their enemies. Each base that falls leaves us, the players, with more questions. Many of us have been trying to figure out how all these bases are being found so quickly, and the possibility of a backdoor has been brought up. What is causing all of this mayhem to happen so suddenly? Today, we're going to try to get to the bottom of this. Has the server been backdoored? Or is all this backdoor talk just being used to hide an exploit? Today I'm going to explain what has happened so far, what bases have fallen, and how you can stay safe from having your base griefed. This is a 2B2T history video where the history is unfolding in front of us right now. So let's get started. If you haven't seen some of my previous history videos, let me just give you a quick rundown that'll help make all of this easier to understand. Since 2B2T was opened in 2010, there's been a loose group of players and hackers that have exploited the server on numerous occasions in order to gain an advantage over other players. They've been called several different names throughout the server's history. Previously, they were known as the Tyranny, but more recently they've taken up the name Nerds Incorporated. The de facto leader of this group is 2B2T legend Tristan. Part of the reason why Tristan has such a notorious reputation on the server is because he used to develop plugins for the server's admin, Housemaster. Tristan gained House's trust over a long period of time and eventually abused this trust by putting code into his plugins that allowed him to backdoor the server. He would obtain coordinates, use creative mode, teleport to the world border, create impossible survival items such as 32k items, and the list goes on. Now let's get to the current events. Back in February, after a long hiatus, the nerds returned to 2B2T, seemingly out of nowhere. They came back and publicly released the coordinates to the Great Ice Dragon, built by Doc Smurf. They released the coords using a meme image. I've blurred out the image because it contained personal information about a 2B2T related person. At the time, this base leak seemed really random, but it's now clear that they were testing some sort of new exploit. Doc Smurf has always been a master at hiding bases and keeping them undiscovered. The server's most notorious players finding it is not a coincidence. To many, this seemed like an isolated incident, but in early May, the nerds released another meme image, leaking a second base. They would continue to post these meme images, all having a similar theme involving chewing tobacco and other traditionally blue-collar themes. People began trying to figure out how these bases were falling in such quick succession. This is when talk of a backdoor began. All of these bases falling in such a short amount of time, it was certainly alarming. But one base in particular caught everybody off guard. A base that I had known about for years but was never allowed to speak about. Space Valkyria 3. On the evening of May 8th, the nerds showed up out of the blue at the recently built Space Valk, took screenshots to gloat, and then proceeded to blow it to smithereens. Jack the Ripper, the builder of this base, informed all members that it had been griefed. One of the members, Alpha Computer, got up from his PC, grabbed a bottle of whiskey, and poured himself 2.5 shots, to celebrate Spacewalk 3 lasting 2.5 years on 2B2T. The griefers that had destroyed the original Spacewalk years ago had returned to destroy the next one. This was the final red flag. The community began scrambling to figure out what was going on. Many started shouting that the server truly had been backdoored, while others went through all the other possible methods. Did the nerds find these bases by using block rotations from screenshots? 2B2T's seed is public, so bases can easily be found just by using natural terrain generation in screenshots. But no, none of these bases had publicly posted photos. Did members of these bases leak? Was insiding involved? Once again, from all the people I spoke to, they assured me that none of the bases had been leaked by members. Spacewalk 3 certainly wasn't leaked by its members. Was Forge Hacks backdoored and sending out coordinates? While many members of the leaked bases used Forge Hacks on 2B2T, there were bases taken out where nobody there used it, so that was out of the question. At this point, it seemed easy to just assume that the nerds had a backdoor once again. But the community continued to research, and something alarming was discovered. A breakthrough that would prove that the backdoor talk was all a facade. On 2B2T, ender pearls are used for long-distance teleportation using alt accounts. Basically, if you throw a pearl into an unloaded chunk, it will stay suspended in midair until another account loads that chunk. If you are online and in the same dimension when that pearl lands, you will instantly be teleported there. Potentially millions of blocks if you were at spawn, in any dimension. Well, it turns out that if you observe another player teleport, you can actually briefly see where they teleported to using tracer hacks. In hacked clients, tracers are straight lines that show the positions of players on your screen, and they can be tracked through any obstacle. So now we have something that might explain it, but the nerds are pretty notorious on 2B2T. Certainly teleporting players using tracers would have noticed that they were being watched. Well, not exactly. There's currently an exploit on 2B2T that allows players to be completely invisible and unable to be seen by tracers. So, putting all of this together, the community came to a conclusion. The nerds must have been sitting near spawn, invisible, looking for players that were idle, implying that a pearl teleport was being set up. They most likely watched these players teleport and then obtained their coordinates. That's when Jack the Ripper finally figured out how Spacewalk 3, one of the most secretive bases on the server, had been found. A few weeks earlier, while working on the base, Jack had accidentally fallen into the end void, and his death message was shown in chat. Since Jack was famous for building the original Space Valkyria, a few players in chat noticed that Jack had died in the end. Once the nerds saw this death message, they knew Jack was working on something. They waited at end spawn, invisible, so they could watch Jack teleport, and sure enough, he did. And they followed the path straight to the base. There was no backdoor. It was just a combination of exploits used in a way that nobody was expecting. The nerds don't even play on 2B2T on a regular basis anymore. So when they show up, you can guarantee they have some sort of exploit ready to try out on the server. Just a few days ago, using social engineering, it was discovered that the nerds indeed had been using the invisible exploit to watch people teleport to their bases. So, how can you stay safe from this exploit? Well, don't pearl yourself to distant locations from spawn regions and you should be alright. But this is 2B2T. You'll never truly be alright. But to answer the title of this video, has 2B2T been backdoored? Well, no. But it's easy to see why people jump to that conclusion. Even I was suspicious that a backdoor may have been possible, but I just hope that you've all learned that on 2B2T, anything can happen. If you'd enjoyed today's video and are interested in more 2B2T history and content, make sure to subscribe. Also make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Well, that's it for today, everyone. There's more 2B2T videos to come. Thank you so much for watching. Stay alive out there, Fit Fam, and be ready for anything in this digital wasteland.